guys, I'm here today to do a reading check-in. Albus has decided he wants to be really noisy. So this video may be at the whim of Albus's naughtiness. So, yeah, it's gonna be. Okay, so in May I did a reading check-in. I spoke about the books I read in the first 4 months of the year. And I realised that another 4 months had passed, and so I thought I would do another reading check-in. So, at the start of the year I made a goals video and I spoke about 3 sort of chilled goals I had, and those goals were all aimed at things I was enjoying in my reading rather than like challenges to reach that were going to be something I would find difficult, because I used to do that like before on BookTube and like I never managed them, and I always found them really irritating a few months in and the excitement would wane. So I thought about it and I was like, it makes way more sense to have challenges that are reflective of things you're enjoying but you'd like to experience more of. And so that is what I did for 2020. So as I think I said, I had 3 goals. And what I'm going to do in this video is talk about what I've done in the last 4 months reading wise and how I've met or not met those goals. And then I'm going to add those figures up with the ones I spoke about in the first third of the year, so we can see like where I am at overall in terms of my reading for the year. So my first challenge was to try and just read more non-fiction. I didn't set a specific number, but I realised that in 2019 I think 5 out of my 9 favourite books were non-fiction, and I only actually read 14 non-fiction books out of like 100. And so I seemed to really enjoy the non-fiction I was reading, and I had a much better hit rate at choosing non-fiction I would love than I did fiction. And so I thought, yeah, why do I barely read any non-fiction? And so I decided to try and just make that more part of my natural reading, that I would just reach for non-fiction just as normal as it would be to reach for fiction. And I really feel like I've got there, like in my mindset, in that I think about non-fiction releases as much as I think about fiction releases. I haul, I think, as much non-fiction as fiction, and in terms of book excitement, I'm just as excited, if not more excited, about the non-fiction books I have lined up to read compared to the fiction. So yeah, I feel like I am there in spirit, so let's see if I'm there in body. I'm not quite sure how that analogy works. So in the first quarter, or I keep wanting to say quarter, in the first third of the year, I read 45 books, and 14 of those were non-fiction. I'm just talking over Albus because he's going to keep doing it, and I don't like to stop him playing because he's having fun, so yeah. So he's just going to carry on. So 14 of those were non-fiction, which is around a third. I was pretty happy with that, so I was hoping to carry that on. In this third of the year, my amount of books read dropped quite a bit, and I knew that would happen. I read 27 books. Basically this last 4 months has been since I've been unwell, and I started to feel pain in my arms towards the end of April, and I managed to carry on reading a lot of physical books in May, and I read a similar amount of books to my usual, June and July, and I think August I managed to pick it up a bit because I really got into audiobooks, but my reading just really dropped. So I only read 27 books, and a lot of those ended up being audio, which, you know, I really enjoy, and I'm fine with that. So yeah, 27 books read in this, oh here he is, in this 4-month section, and 8 of those were non-fiction, which still works out at around a third, just under. It should be 9 and then it would be a third maths. So yeah, entirely happy with that. That means that out of the 72 books I've read in total so far, 22 of them are non-fiction, which again is very nearly a third. So that's absolutely fine. I'm happy for that to be like how it ends up at the end of the year. So I don't even feel like this is like a challenge. I just feel like it's something I'm doing, and it's like interesting for me to check in about it. I don't know, it's interesting for you to hear about it. But I will say, like, if you're one of those readers who like always says, oh, I want to read more non-fiction, and you only end up reading like 1 or 2 a year, that's how I was for many years. I would be so excited about non-fiction. I had a list of non-fiction books I wanted to read as long as my arm, but never actually read them, and it just naturally happened. and now I read so much more, so it could happen for you still. So the next thing I want to focus on was just reading more diversely. As I've said, for like all the years of being a reader, I have read predominantly books by white authors, mainly British, quite a lot of Americans in recent years, and I've reached for books that make me feel nostalgic. Nostalgia is like a massive thing for me, and I think nostalgia can sometimes be a dangerous thing because it allows you to stay in this really narrow mindset and to not necessarily consider like all the other lives that people are living all around the world. And I realised again, I'd had a couple of rubbish reading years, and I couldn't really put my finger on what it was and what I was doing wrong, like what I was choosing wrong about all these books. And then last year, I did start to reach for books by people who have completely different lives to me, people who have maybe emigrated, people who live in a predominantly white country but are not white, books that focused on the racism people might have to live through, or the homophobia people might have to live through, just different stories that I myself hadn't and could never experience, and I loved them. It ended up being that most of my favourite books of the year were books that in no way aligned with experience I'd lived. So I wanted to try and carry that on. So in the first half of the year, as I said, I read, not the first half, the first 4 months, I'm going to get this right by the end of the video. I read 45 books, 16 of those were by authors of colour. And then in this section of the year, as I said, I read 27 of books, and 16 of them again were by authors of colour, but obviously that amount has like increased significantly because I've read by less, but I'm still at 16. So that ends up adding up to 32 books by authors of colour, which is obviously nearly half of 72. And again, like all the books I've been hauling and I'm excited about, the majority of them really don't align with my own personal experiences. I'm still always gonna love reading books by white working class British women who are around my age, because there's just so much nostalgia to be had there. And I never want to write, but I love seeing somebody be able to capture so acutely the childhood or the teenage years I may have had. But I recognise that not only have I been loving all these other types of stories, but secondly, and perhaps more importantly, I recognise that it's so easy for me to, perhaps not the class thing, but in every other way it's really easy for me to see my childhood reflected in books. But it's nowhere near as easy for lots of other people. And if we don't buy those books, borrow those books from the library, then the publishing industry aren't seeing a demand for those stories, and they're going to carry on publishing, you know, these predominantly white, you know, cis stories that in every way conform to the majority, you know, the norm. And so we have to demand these stories, we have to buy them, and we have to put our money and our library requests behind them. So yeah, for both those reasons I have just been really loving reading lots of different stuff this year. And my third challenge was to do with my unread books. I'm going to have to take a sip of drink before I do this, because this is where I have lots of notes and it gets a little bit complicated. So I started the book with 110 unread books that I own, my physical TBR, and I wanted to get that down to 50. My plan was every month to read 5 of them, which would obviously add up to 60, get me down to 50, but that also meant that any books I bought into the home as new books had to be read. They couldn't be carried over, because obviously then I'd be over 50. And I felt like ultimately I'd like to have a physical TBR of around 30 books, but 50 would be good enough for now. And I've spoken about this at length, so I'm not going to go into it here, but all I will say is this is a personal thing. I have many reasons why I would like to own less books. I am in no way commenting on people who like to have a big amount of books, so let's not be like precious about this, okay? This is just something that I would like to do. So, started the book with 110 unread books. I managed to get down to 79 in the first section of the year, but then I had some new books, which added up, I got 28 new books, but then I read 10 of them. So I ended up finishing that first third of the year with 97 books. So not great. I should have been at 90 and I was at 97, but also not awful. This is where it gets bad. And I'm gonna like completely forgive myself on this for a couple of obvious reasons, but we'll discuss that afterwards. So, went into May with 97 books. Birthday happened. This isn't even one of the things I'm gonna forgive myself for, but I think it should be. Birthday happened, obviously. I used to get like 50 or 60 books for my birthday, right? So I used to go just insane. But now I try and reduce that, so it gets to like 20, which is nowhere near as bad. Anyway, so I ended up getting, God, these numbers are bloody awful, 50, I hold 50 books in 4 months. So birthday happened, and then there's been some good new releases, and I've sort of felt like treating myself because the world. And then I had gone through a sort of a stage where, I mean, I moved house and I changed email address, so it was very easy for me not to be in contact with publishers anymore, which was sort of a blessing because obviously I wanted to reduce my TBR. But then I thought, there's quite a few books I'm interested in. So I reached out to some publishers, so I also got sent some new books. So I hauled 50. I have only read 6 of them because I'm not even reading physical books, so it's all pointless. So I've got 44 left to read, okay? 15 of those are from publishers, and the rest of books I was either bought for my birthday or I bought myself. So 44, then I double checked and I've got 65 unread books of my own books from the start of the year, okay? So when you look at it like that, it's not so bad. I started at 110, it's gone down to 65. I don't know how much of that is actually reading and how much of that is... There's been quite a lot of DNFing going on, guys, okay? And unhauling. So it's probably half and half. Half read, half DNF'd and unhauled. But when you add 65 and 44, you come to 109. So, in 8 months, I've reduced my TBR by 1 book. At least it's not gone up. Positives. The 2 big excuses are coronavirus. Who knew? And, you know, I think a lot of people have broken a lot of the challenges they set themselves because in a time of crisis, you've just got to treat yourselves. And also, I jumped on that train of excuses of supporting like authors who are being published during difficult times and independent bookshops who are struggling. Both great things to support, but also excellent excuses for people who are addicted to buying books. So that happened. But also, I think more than anything, the issues I've had with my arms and just being, you know, really unable to physically read and physically reading a book just taking me so long. Because I tend to have like a stretch of good, well, I tend to have like maybe 2 good days and then a stretch of bad days. So if I'm physically reading a book, I might not pick it up for a week. So I figured that actually the only books I should really read physically are like short story collections and essay collections, because I think it's unfair to walk away from a novel for that length of time. Because I think I've done that with a few novels in the last few months, and it's just been an unfairness to them. So I've just barely read any physical books, and I've been audiobooking a lot. I'm not even including the audiobooks I've bought during this time because and they don't count, do they? They don't actually exist. They're like virtual. So yeah, and I resent audiobooking books I already own because I'm using like a credit on Audible for them, or on Scribd. I thought it was unlimited. It's not. So they only actually let you listen to like a few books a month before they like remove nearly all the books you want to read. And so again, I don't want to waste the listens that I do have on books I own. Is that wrong? Should I be focused? Because if I'm audiobooking for the rest of the year, then this number of 109 isn't going to shift, is it? Because if I just audiobook books I don't have, we're just going to sit at 109, and I really would love to reduce it. So yeah, if I was feeling completely fine right now, I'd feel really positive about this. Like, I feel like it's actually really achievable. I'm so excited about all the books I have. And like, you know, it's still not like you can do a ton in the world. And I'm really like into reading. I feel like I just want to read all the time, but like can't, you know? And maybe that's why I want to read all the time, because it's something I sort of can't do so much. So like, I'm like I was going to say pandering after it, not pandering after it. I can't think of the word, but I want to do it more, because I can't. So yeah. So anyway, I feel pretty positive. I mean, I feel like I've read a lot of non-fiction. I've read much more diversely. I've been, you know, reading other voices and learning much more, and just, you know, finding like fascinating things out. And I think I think it makes you so much more empathetic. I can't say that word. It gives you much more empathy when you don't just listen to stories like your own. So I've loved that. But the TBR thing hasn't been going brilliantly. And another thing I will say is that I have my books I had pre-2020 and my new books separated. I have all my new books on a book trolley. They don't quite fit anymore. And I am just drawn to the book trolley. Like, I just never get drawn to the old books anymore. And I feel like I would love my whole TBR to be able to fit on a book trolley, and then I'd be happy. Like, that's my aim. It's not even a numbers thing anymore, it's fitting on the book trolley. And yeah, like, I've gone through all the books I've owned pre-2020 and I still want them all, but yet feel nowhere near as excited about them as I do all the new books I have. So there's still this issue of like never getting through those if you have lots of new ones. Yeah, so there's that. So that's my update. I mean, this was way longer than I thought. I thought this was going to be like a little quick check-in video, but I've been in quite a chatty mood today. One second, I'm just going to pick up my mouth. I had quite a bad pain day yesterday. I've woke up today and I don't feel anywhere near as good, so I think I just feel a bit jolly. It'll probably get worse later, but we won't worry about that now. So yeah, that is the check-in. Do you have any thoughts? Do you have any reading goals? How are they going? Have you found yourself hauling more during all the just awful things going on in the world? And yeah, audiobooks. Let me know amazing audiobooks. I'm really enjoying audiobooks, but I think there is a difference between an audiobook that's done well and an audiobook that's done brilliantly. I might do a video on my favourite audiobooks. Let me know if you'd be interested in that, and also let me know if you'd be interested in me just quickly going through the book trolley. I do most of my book hauls over on Patreon for my $1 patrons, so a lot of you won't have seen all those new books. So I could just like do a whiz through of them all so you can see everything I have new in. So yeah, let me know. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video, which should be soon. I'm trying to be good and upload more regularly. So yeah, see you soon. Bye.